Welcome to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics that write thought-provoking books. I'm Mark Kramer, a serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs. This is our 103rd show. Today's guest is Dr. Carrie Johnson, author of The New Mindset, New Results, and it's a fabulous book. I really enjoyed this book, and it's a fun book to read as well. So, Carrie, welcome.
Thanks.
So, Carrie, let's start off with you telling the audience about your background and how you got to where you are.
Wow, really interesting. So, speaking of the book, I just brought a book here also, so to get a little visual of it. But I got out of UC San Diego with a BA, and I decided that I was going to. I played on the tennis team there, and I decided I was going to try my hand on the pro tennis tour. So I immediately went to Europe to play on the satellites for a couple of years. Came back once I realized I was not going to be in the top 20 in the world, and got my doctorate. And then I did this extension program for undergraduates to determine whether they go into academia, whether they go into clinical psychology. I was a research psychologist. And it kind of hit me when I was organizing this seminar that I didn't want to become an academician. I didn't want to become a clinician. And I decided I wanted to go on my own. Because the other two stuff was just, didn't make enough money or way too intense. So I became a stockbroker for about, 1 year. Used to make 150 cold calls a day, got rejected 149 times a day, except I called my mom in the afternoons. And even then, she would say, don't ever call me again after 3 months,
Yeah.
So I started my consulting psychology practice at 26 years old. And I would go around to, insurance companies, real estate companies, corporations. And I'm sure they looked at me and thought, this 26-year-old kid is going to screw up our business, but we need a speaker for our meeting next month. I wonder if he could speak. And then Prentice Hall approached me when I was 27. Salmon & Schuster approached me when I was 28. And after 17 books, we came up with New Mindset, New Results.
Wow. That's how many books you've written so far?
17th book, yeah.
And I thought me writing 6 was a lot, but it's like I'm just getting started. I'm like way behind here. I got to catch up. So why did you write this book then?
My coaching practice is very, very successful. And a lot of the ideas I get for books, for example, Mastering Self-Confidence, Mastering Self-Discipline. I wrote Negotiating the Deal. My newest one is I'm just going to finish it probably next week. It's called How to Hire, Recruit, Retain Great People. But all the books I write are in response to what my clients are going through. So it kind of hit me. Why would you have people that you could provide some great skill sets? For example, how to get referrals, how to do an elevator speech, and they would listen to it and maybe they wouldn't apply it, or they would apply it and it wouldn't work. So as a psychologist, it's always kind of crazy for me to look at the variables. And every book I write is a response to helping these clients become more effective. And for a lot of people, they self-sabotage. So for example, we have one concept in my coaching practice called barriers to thinking. So for example, we take people from maybe $100,000 a year to $200,000 or $300,000 a year, and they artificially stop themselves. And you get down deep into it and they stop doing the things that are really successful. So for example, we know that if you make $100,000 a year and you're a salesperson, every hour that you're talking to a prospect client makes you $200. Just basically take 1%, multiply that $200 per phone call. So if you're not doing that, you're doing paperwork, which is maybe $20 an hour. You're throwing away 200 to make 20, and that's a mindset issue. So those are self-sabotaging things that people experience with the wrong kind of mindset.
And that's why you gave it that title?
Yeah, New Mindset, New Results, yeah.
Yeah, and I love the title. And we had somebody in the audience who said that you wrote something, I guess, in the 90s, and it's still magic today. So that says something.
No, that's not me. I'm not that old, so it's somebody else.
Okay. All right.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
yeah.
Tom's got sales magic. Hi, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the definition of mindset when you write this?
Mindset is how you filter what you see, what you experience, what you hear, what you feel. Mindset is how you respond to things that happen around you. For example, if I have a setback, mindset would be: do I experience a setback as a growth opportunity, or do I experience a setback as taking something away from me? I talk a lot about airline flights because I fly a heck of a lot to speeches there every week. So if I have a delay of 2 or 3 hours, do I experience that as saying, blank, blank American Airlines, or do I experience that as saying, this is an opportunity to make more progress on the next book? This is an opportunity to be able to do more research. This is an opportunity to get more free time so I could do something else. So that's how we experience life. If I have an argument with my wife, for example, and who doesn't have some issues with their spouses, do I look at her as being somebody who I should never married, or do I look at her as having this anxiety that we need to help through that process so that she can grow from that? So that all that stuff is mindset. So you could think of mindset as a viewpoint, but it's more than that. It's how we filter information that comes in, how we filter experiences.
We have a question from the audience. What's one blind spot you encountered that had high impact and was a wake-up call for you?
Oh, this is a really good one. Probably the biggest setback I've had in my career was, and I wrote about this in the book, was I was doing a series of about 20, 30 speeches for an annuity company, and they were sponsoring me. And one of my clients wanted to go in Manchester, up in the north in New Hampshire, Vermont, New Hampshire, I guess. And he wanted to be a guest. Well, unfortunately, and I was the speaker, he tried to recruit one of the people to his company that he was sitting next to. Well, it got back to me when I gave a speech in Boston that happened. And the wholesaler that was sponsoring me accused me of trying to steal her business. And I felt really guilty. And I said, listen, how can I make this up to you? It wasn't my fault, but I feel bad that you went through that. And she said, well, if you could do the speech for free today and just give it back to us. And I said, well, I'm doing 30 speeches for you anyway. It's not a big deal. Well, about a month later, she was on a national broadcast with the whole company, and she told the story about how I tried to sabotage her business, and the company pulled everything back from me. So I lost, a heck of a lot of money. So this is a situation where it wasn't my fault. The client did try to, the guest did try to steal business. I tried to patch it up with the company, and I really felt like they sabotaged me behind my back. So the mindset would be, I hate this company. I'm going to disparage them whenever I can. Or it could be, I should never have given that much business to one company. I should split that across other groups. I'll never let that happen again. And I'm going to work really hard to get that business back and learn from that mistake. That's a really good example of mindset.
Yeah, I remember reading that in the book, and I thought that woman was a jerk to have done that to you. And who wouldn't want to take all those engagements? And you thought you had a good opportunity there. But that's like many entrepreneurs or many businesses who 80% of their income comes from 20% of their clients. And without that diversification, all it takes is a couple of clients to put you out of business.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You write, it's more natural to think negatively than positively. Why is that? And how do you keep negative thoughts out of your head? For example, let's say you made a proposal to get a consulting gig and you keep thinking you aren't going to get it, even though you're perfectly qualified. Are those feelings self-fulfilling prophecies?
We suffer from a lot of things that develop our mindset. One is environmental issues. One is past experiences. But when we start thinking negatively about things, I mean, that's really how a lot of us are trained. If you look at CNBC, it'll probably show you 15 of the most horrible things that will happen so they could get you to come to the next show after the commercial break. So the problem when we think negatively is that no matter how you think, whether you think positively or negatively, it creates neural pathways with those thoughts. So think of the brain as being a string of interconnections. Acetylcholine is the liquid that actually goes across from the dendrite to the neuron, and it creates all these massive pathways. If you think negatively, it reinforces a pathway, so you think more negatively afterwards. If you try to think positively, it reinforces those pathways at the same time. So the more we think negatively, the easier it becomes to think negatively. So in that regard, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
What are the three basic building blocks of mindset? And you write about those in the book.
Yeah, the building blocks are basically what you believe in affects behavior. The behavior affects mindset, and mindset controls everything. So mindset is like this CPU in a computer. We have the behaviors, which is the hard drive. We have maybe the monitors, the USB, the network. But everything that happens with the computer is the CPU, and that's mindset. Mindset controls everything that you experience. On the other hand, mindset is controlled initially by what we believe in, the behaviors that happen. But once we develop a mindset about something, it controls everything else.
And you were a tennis pro. For how many years did you play on the circuit?
2 years. I describe myself as being 95 in the world until they fixed the ATP computer ranking system where I slipped to 10,033.
Oh, wow.
It's a joke, by the way.
So from being a tennis pro, what did you take away from that impacted how you coach people now?
Tennis is a really great example of how to win in pretty much everything you do, because tennis is not just about a backhand. I had one of the best backhands in pro tennis. It's not about forehand. My forehand was okay. It's not really about movement. I had one of the best flat serves and kick serves of all the people I played. But tennis was knowing how to take all those things together and hit the strokes at the right time. So, for example, you'll see people on the pro tennis tour, for example, Rafa, who are so competitive. No matter how far they get down, they are able to come back and win the tennis match. Look at the Australian Open. Australian Open was played in January. He was down 2-0 against, can't remember who it was right now, blocking this thing out. But he was able to won the next 3 sets, even though Medvedev, even though he was down, he was able to bring himself back up. So his mindset was that if I work hard enough, I'll be able to give myself a chance. But I really think he never thought he would ever lose. And tennis was one of those sports where if you have an inkling that I could lose this match, you're going to get decimated. I remember playing in a major tennis tournament, and one of the players walked in the locker room and said, "You're playing next round?" And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Jimmy Connors." Wow. Boy, I hope you get a game. So guess what happens when you start thinking, I hope I get a game? That means you lose 6-0, 6-0. But if you walk into that match thinking, he hasn't got a chance, I'm going to decimate this guy, I'm going to beat him 6-0, 6-0. Maybe you win, maybe you lose, but you're going to get a much better score, much better outcome than if you went in thinking, I'm not going to win. I want to protect myself. I want to try to get a couple of games and not embarrass myself. And that's mindset.
I wonder what the thinking is. I remember Ivan Lendl was down 2-0 and 4-2 in the third set against McEnroe and came back. You probably remember that. And I wonder what's going through McEnroe's head that he wasn't able to win that match. And that changed Ivan Lendl's career permanently.
Yeah. Well, think of what you just said. So there's two mindsets going on there. The Lendl mindset is, I'm going to win. I'm going to come back. The McEnroe mindset is, I'm ahead. I can't believe this guy is beating me. If I lose, this is what's going to happen. So we always said in tennis that the hardest game to win is the last game when you're ahead. The most difficult thing to do is preserve a lead because you start self-sabotaging, you start getting nervous. So one is a fixed mindset that McEnroe had. I've got to preserve what I've got. And the other one is a growth mindset, which is what Lendl had, which basically says, I'm going to win. I'm going to rise back up. I'm going to overcome all these obstacles. And that's really kind of the purpose of the book, those two mindsets.
And what do you think the mindset was? And I hate to ask another sports question, but you're able to weave those in even throughout your book. When the Falcons were up 28-3 on the Patriots, and the young guys were like, hey, we're killing Tom Brady. It's over for him. And the older guys were like, it's Tom Brady. 28-3 isn't much of a lead if you're going against Tom Brady. Well, Brady's mindset is take it one play at a time, right? And these guys, before you knew it, Tom Brady came back and they won. What do you think the mindsets were going on there?
I think in that case, you look at a player like Tom Brady. I think that I'm not the first person who said this, but Tom Brady had a belief that says, all I have to do is throw the passes. If my team plays at the level they can play at, we can win. It's the belief. In tennis, we feel the same way. If I believe I'm going to do well against this guy, I've got a good chance of winning. If I believe that I'm just trying to preserve something, I'm not. So I think the old guys had more belief than the young guys did. I think they had more experience that they could pull back on, which is, you and I've talked before about confidence. What develops self-confidence? Well, it's the belief and the ability to access what happened 10 years ago when I was able to overcome a 6-3, 5-5-2 deficit, and I was able to beat the guy in the third set. It's the belief and the memory, the access that I had, where I was able to get past this lady who treated me badly, and they pulled back 20 speeches, and I was able to bring my business back up from the ash heap to try to build it up to better than what was before. Belief is what benefits these people the most.
Well, what do you tell people that have always been successful and then they go on a losing streak, how to get themselves out of spiraling out of control?
It's the same thing. It's getting them to access past successes. In the book, I talk a little bit, I especially do about my book, Willpower, Mastering Self-Confidence, that when you have a child that might be 10 years old and the child has a difficult time with sports or difficult time with school or difficult time with anything that they're trying to achieve, you've got to bring that kid back to a memory of what they succeeded at in the past. So if we have a kid that, I talk about this in the book with my daughter, and she said, everybody in the team is better than I am. I think I should just quit because they're all better. This is a 12-year-old kid on a girls softball team. And, I brought Catherine back. And I said, Catherine, remember when you got a base hit the second time you were at bat with the team? Do you remember when your team won that game that you were down to 6-3? Remember the time when you did that double play and you were able to pick that batter off? Do you remember that? Oh, yeah, I do remember that. So when people start getting discouraged, they get down, they forget the past successes and they start focusing on the moment instead of what happened in the past. And that's when people have a downturn, when they have a period of bad luck or something, it's that they forget the successes. They focus only on the downturn.
It's funny. I have these 3 articles I was featured in, and they're like in my hallway, and they're only there just to remind me that I had past success. So when I start my day with a positive mindset. What are the concepts of successive approximation and behavior shaping, and why are these things important?
This is one of the most important things that I talk about in the book, and I've mentioned this other places. So successive approximation is how we can actually take a behavior and we can develop that behavior in other people to develop something within them. So for example, let's take a kid example. Let's take a kid that we really want that child to be able to clean up his room. And the kid, you just can't tell the kid clean up your room. And if you don't do it next time, I'm going to get really upset at you. So we have to look at Shamu. So Shamu and SeaWorld, I'm not even sure they have Shamu there anymore. I grew up in San Diego, and we used to go to Shamu shows about once a month during the summertime at least. But they don't take this killer whale and put fish on top of a burning hoop with fish at 100 feet above, and say, hey, Shamu, get up there and go through the hoop, and I'm going to beat you up until you do that. So what they do is to successfully approximate the behavior. They put a fish on top of the water, Shamu grabs the fish. They put a fish 2 feet out of the water, Shamu grabs the fish. The third day, they put a fish 4 feet, next day 5 feet, until they get to 100 feet. And all the while, they're putting these hoops in there. And maybe the third or fourth month, they put fire around the hoop so Shamu gets used to that successive approximation. We're approximating the target behavior. We want that animal, if you will, to be able to get. Now, our children are not animals, our spouse are not animals. But if you want to really get people to achieve the behavior you want, you're going to reward them for being closer to the behavior. So, for example, in business, I have this discussion all the time. Somebody comes in 30 minutes late. Well, you let them know what the behavior is that you want to target. Listen, Mark, I really need you to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. Not 8:30. Oh yeah, no, sorry, I forgot about that. So the next day, I don't beat Mark up because he comes in at 8:10. The next day, I reward Mark through praise by being there earlier. So you get there at 8:25. Hey, Mark, you're doing a super job. I need you at 8:30, but thank you so much for coming in earlier. And the next time I praise you, by the way, praise is reward. I praise you for coming in at 8:20. But the next time is 8:15 until I get you to actually come in at 8 o'clock because I praised you. A behavior shaped you into the behavior that I want you to achieve. We could do the same thing with kids. We could do the same thing. My wife tells me that she saved our marriage. And I'm not sure I believe this because I never thought that, I did anything differently. But I would play tennis on Sundays, and I have this group of guys, and 12 guys. We were all middle-aged guys, and we'd have a couple of beers afterwards. And she would be there with the kids and play on Sundays. Well, the first time I came home earlier instead of 5 o'clock, 4:30, she praised me for being earlier. The next one was 4 o'clock. The next 3 o'clock, until finally I just changed it to Saturdays, and I said I'm going to spend time with my family on Sundays, which is what she wanted in the first place. And it was never done because she yelled at me, nagged at me. It's always done because she behavior shaped me into spending more time with the family on Sundays. And she said it saved our marriage.
Smart, very, very smart.
Smart lady, I know.
Yeah. That's why you're so successful. She's the behind the throne. Are people born with self-confidence, or can it be developed? Because, we run across a lot of people and you think, man, that person really has a lot of self-confidence. And those who don't have it wonder, am I just not born with that?
I don't think people are born with anything like that. I think that we're going to talk about IQ in a couple of seconds because that's one of the questions you want to relate to. So The only thing that we're actually born with are probably a level of ability to learn, which is the definition of IQ. I once heard that we're born with three things. Number one, we're born with the fear of loud noises, the fear of darkness, and the fear of the IRS. And that's kind of all we're born with. I actually gave a speech. You'll appreciate this, Mark. Mm-hmm. I gave a speech too. And I think that's one of the 4 or 5 fears people have is speaking in front of groups. So I was in Las Vegas speaking to about 1,000 people. And the guy after me was actually speaking on how to speak in front of groups. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, number one fear among America is speaking in front of a group. Number 2 fear is dying. Number 3 fear is dying while speaking in front of a group. I thought it was hilarious. It was so funny. So we're not born with anything close to being self-confident. That's all developed. And the way it's developed is by things like successive approximation, bringing your kids back to what they were succeed in the past, making sure they feel more hopeful about things in the future. Instead of ruminating and worry about things, we bring them back. So yeah, I don't think we're born with self-confidence.
I coached before, and I found that if I took the worst kid and we were playing basketball and he accidentally stole the ball and I stopped the game to congratulate him, all of a sudden he started playing at a higher level.
He's got that memory.
What's that?
He's got that memory.
Yeah. And I think you do. The praise, sincere, authentic praise, gets people to another level. So talk about IQ, because I know like my IQ is average, and nobody would have expected me to write 6 books and so forth, or have a show like this interviewing people like you. So talk about what's all cracked up. Is IQ really that important?
Well, IQ was actually created by Alfred Binet back in France in the 19th century. And they were trying to take the students who were probably that had the best chance of becoming great or spectacular or high achievers and put them in a special school. So he had this series of batteries of tests that would actually identify these students who were more gifted. They called it gifted. That IQ model was created in 1871. It lasted probably until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, in which he started fighting against IQ. So that was more than 100 years that we thought that IQ was static. It would never change. It was always going to be the same. Good example I wrote in this book that there was a class in, I think it was probably 10th grade or maybe 9th grade or something in high school. And this a teacher was horrible. It was a civics class or history. And I would just want to get out, went to the counselor and I said, can you put me in a different class? I don't like the teacher. And she said, the only one left is the gifted GATE program, and you have to test into it. But we looked at your IQ, which is, between 100 is average IQ. 140 is typically way above average, and Einstein was maybe 180 or something like that. But yeah, IQ doesn't change. But I really want to get out of the class. Well, I'll give you the test, but your IQ is not going to change. Well, she gave me 3 hours. She left me alone, and I gave it to her back at 2 hours, and she came back after about a half an hour of scoring the test, and she looked shocked. She said, I've never in all my years of being in the school system seen an IQ go from, I forgot where it was, because we know IQ doesn't change. And which is really good for her because they get more money from the state when they could have did.
I remember you said that in the book.
Students, yeah. So she was just thrilled. And that was my first experience with IQ, even though I wasn't in academia yet. So now we know that IQ can actually go up depending on how much growth you have. So one of the really important things in the book, New Mindset, New Results, is there's 3 kinds of mindsets. Number 1 is a fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset says, all I am right now is I'll ever be. I need to protect myself. My wife says, you really messed up in this one. I've got to defend myself and attack her because I can't grow from it. I've got to protect my fixed mindset. I've got to protect my fixed characteristics, my fixed IQ, my fixed features. The second one is called the growth mindset. And the growth mindset says basically everything that happens to me, I'm going to be able to grow from. I'm going to take what I have currently and I'm going to develop, move, achieve, but I'm going to take every experience I'm going to learn from that. So those are the 2 mindsets. The fixed mindset is all I am right now is what I'll ever be. The growth mindset was created by Carol Dweck at Stanford University, who discovered that certain people were able to grow through problems, through altercations. And the book is really focused a little bit more on the results-focused mindset. So the results-focused mindset says, here's where I am right now. Here's where I want to be. I need to change this part of who I am to get here. And it could be, maybe I need to get an MBA. I need to get a PhD. Maybe I need to take a couple of courses. I need to think differently. But the mindset part was I need to change who I am to get to this level. So I tell my coaching clients, when I first do a 20-question evaluation, the only way that we're going to be able to get you from $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year is either by doubling your hours or by doubling your skills. And what I really mean by that is skills plus how you think about things. Because otherwise you're going to work twice the hours, but you're not going to, unless we do that without the mindset and the skill set, we're not going to be able to get you to the next level. And most people will just get stuck at whatever they're in. So another way to think of mindset too is how stocks trade. I was a stockbroker for 1 year, and cold calling wasn't my deal. So I still sell, by the way, to use referrals instead of cold calling now. But there's a support level and a resistance level. So a stock will trade in between these 2 levels. So it'll go up here, jump up to the resistance level, jump down to the support level. But you'll see this 52-day moving average of what basically, if the stock goes below the support level, I buy. If the stock goes above the resistance level, I sell. So we're always trying to trade within that channel. We're exactly like that in our lives. So if you want to take income, if I'm making between, I don't know, 50 and $100,000 a year, I'll artificially self-sabotage if I start getting to 120 or 130. I'll also work 24 hours a day if I get down to 30, 40, $50,000 because I've got to keep myself in that predestined channel of where my life is headed. That's why it's so difficult for people to get a results-focused mindset or a growth mindset because we're fixed in these channels of how we're developing, how we're doing, how successful we are. And that's one of the reasons mindset is so important.
Question from the audience. What's the one thing that has shifted your approach, delivery, and execution to attract new clients from this COVID business?
I wrote a book called The Mastering the Virtual Sale. One of the reasons why you see the frame of this camera right here, I had to prop it up, so I wanted to make sure this framed effectively. The thing that really shaped me the most is realizing how much more we can do virtually than we could ever do face to face. A lot of my clients realize that just by embracing new technologies, growing through this thing, they can actually get more business in this platform than we can if we were just doing windshield time and seeing maybe 3 appointments a day, et cetera, et cetera. That changed a lot for me.
You write about why entrepreneurs fail, and you write that in many cases it isn't about lack of money, but attitude. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I've got this one client who has landscaping business. And he said, I really haven't been able to grow much. I've been in business for 15 years. And most landscapers in the world, they get to maybe 1 year, 2 years, they're running out of money and they have to work for somebody else. And 85% of businesses fail not because they don't have enough cash, is because they don't know how to market themselves. Well, I went to this landscaper and I said, so tell me what you do in terms of new clients. Do you get referrals? Well, not really. They always say it's word of mouth. Well, how do you get referrals? Well, people talk about me. Well, we know that there's 2 kinds of referrals. One is called proactive referral. The other one's called advocacy. A proactive referral is when you get a name. You call the person, you book an appointment. Advocacy referral, that has a 38% chance of booking an appointment. An advocacy referral is when people call you out of the blue. That has an 83% chance of booking business. The only possible way we're able to get advocacy referrals is by frequency of contact, keeping in contact with clients, prospects, et cetera, et cetera. So I said to this landscaper, I said, I want you to start calling people every 3 months, no matter if you've done business with them, if you've not, and just give an update. Here's how your lawn is doing. Call the prospects and say, we had a couple things you're working on. Tell me your progress on that. And I checked back with this guy after 6 months. I said, how many people have you called? Oh, I was really too busy. I was doing paperwork. We had some people to quit. I had to do some accounting. I really didn't get into that. That's why small businesses fail, because they can't do the right things. They're really busy. We call those avoidance behaviors. They're avoiding doing the things they need to be doing, but they fail because they're not doing the right things.
How's that different from the growth mindset?
The growth mindset would say, okay, so Kerry Johnson's written 17 books. I believe him. I trust him. I've agreed that I need to do that. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do to change to be able to make those 3-month phone calls and get those advocacy referrals. The fixed mindset, I've got this thing happening right now. I haven't got staff. I'm just going to do it because it's easier for me. That's a fixed mindset. The growth mindset says, I don't care what happens. I'm going to hire somebody else, a part-timer. I'm going to work, late into the night to do that, but I'm going to make those 3-month phone calls. That's I'm growing into something I need to be. That's the growth mindset.
Yeah, I send every week 3 articles to past clients, to a couple different groups of clients. And I find usually once a month, someone contacts me and said, hey, I'd like to get together for lunch and talk about something you might be able to help me with. Here's another question from the audience. What are the right things that small businesses that they have to focus on? How's the rule of 80-20? Should it apply to SMEs?
Well, Pareto principle basically says 80% of my business comes from 20% of clients. 20% of my business comes from 80% of clients. So what that really means is let's really focus on the things that make you the most amount of money. So as I said before earlier in this in the show, that the reason the businesses fail is because they're not doing the right things. Well, the truth of the matter is that I need to be doing the things that are client focused, customer focused mostly. So if I can maximize my customer contact time, talking to people, relationships, touching people, and minimize the administration stuff I do, I'm going to be able to offload that to somebody else. I'm going to be able to grow my business a lot more effectively, a lot faster. And avoidance behaviors are all the things that we do to avoid doing the things that are uncomfortable. Talking to people is uncomfortable. Talking to prospects is uncomfortable. They give me rejection. Maybe I have a fear of success. Maybe I have a fear of failure. I have a fear of looking foolish. So I'm going to avoid doing those things and doing the things that are comfortable, the avoidance behaviors that will slowly sabotage my business.
And what kind of damage can people who consistently provide negative feedback, and how do you get over that? And you talk about that in the book.
That's really difficult because there are people that I play tennis with and I play golf with, and they'll tell me about all the horrible things that happen. You know, I was just in Costa Rica and my flight was 3 hours delayed. I can't believe what happened. You know, I had this situation where my daughter just said this to me about a week ago. I was stuck at Birmingham, and American Airlines, as my wife is a flight attendant with American Airlines. The flight was so late that they were going to, I had to spend the night in Birmingham, and I had to buy a ticket on Delta, and it cost me double the price. You know, that we hear this happening all the time, this and this and this. We've really got to be able to take ourselves out of things that are influential and focus on the things that we need to do. And a way to do that is called pattern interrupt. So I talked about neural pathways a couple of minutes ago. So we have all these neurons, billions of neurons in the brain. And the more we think, the more we reinforce those neural pathways. And the more we reinforce it, the easier it is for us to be able to think of those neural pathways. It's almost like a pipe. If I don't think much about something, the pipe will become that big. If I think a lot about it, the pipe becomes that big. More water goes through, the more blood goes through, et cetera, et cetera. So a pattern interrupt would be very simple. I'll take, if you could imagine my watch, this is a rubber band. Every time you hear something that's self-sabotaging, every time you hear something that's not edifying, uplifting, we snap it. And that snap is going to cause not a lot of pain, but discomfort. That'll be a reminder for us to think about the time that we did get to Charleston on time, the time that we were able to get more time to write that new book. We were able to work on that new project because we had more free time instead of focus on the negative things.
You write about how John McEnroe, which we talked a little bit earlier about what happened with Lendl, loved the money and fame, but not the game. How did he play at such a high level without loving it? Because that's what always impressed me about like Pete Rose and how he was able to play so many years, because he just was so passionate about the game. So talk about that.
Yeah, McEnroe in his book, You Can't Be Serious, actually talked about that. He said he played tennis. He enjoyed tennis, but didn't love it. So his father was dominating. Patrick McEnroe talked about his father also from time to time. But McEnroe loved the fame. He loved the money, which is why McEnroe was number one in the world for 170 weeks. Now, compare that to Roger Federer. Roger Federer was number one in the world for 302 weeks. Roger Federer made $80 million a year, the highest paid athlete in the world for a period of time. He's been injured lately. He may not come back. But McEnroe was a guy that really liked the tropic success. He didn't really like tennis that much. If you talk to Federer, especially Rafa, these two guys love tennis so much. I get the feeling they do it for free, but don't let that get around. Right. So it's a difference between loving something so much that you enjoy it versus want to be focused on it because of the benefits. And again, to relate to the book, McEnroe was a fixed mindset. Federer, Rafa, it was a growth mindset. Because look at another situation. Look at how players talk about the other player after they lose. Almost all of us are trained on TV to say, oh, you know, Rafa played wonderfully. He deserved to win. But what they say afterwards during the press conferences is really interesting. So McEnroe almost always would say, you know, that Lendl, if it wasn't for that sawdust, you know, I'd be able to, they always had to clean this up. It was too distracting. You know, you know, I don't like Lendl because, you know, he did something. Federer would always congratulate the person before and after. Look at Rafa. He won his, I think it was the 21st Grand Slam. He passed Federer up by one Grand Slam in Australia. And Federer called Rafa and he said, congratulations, that's a great achievement. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad you did that. Would McEnroe have done that? I doubt it. Would Federer have done it? He did.
Yeah, well, McEnroe is a different kind of person for sure. Question from the audience. how can we change the scarcity mindset?
Oh, that's really interesting. So there's two kinds of, I'm not sure it's a mindset, but it's a way of thinking about something: scarcity and abundance. Scarcity is related to a fixed mindset. What I have right now, I've $1,000 in my bank account. I need to preserve that. I know that that one seminar is going to help me use referrals better. I know that one seminar is going to help me. This one book, this one thing over here is going to help me grow into something. But I've got to keep it, because what if something terrible happened? At least I'll have a cushion. The growth mindset basically says, if I want to think in terms of abundance, I want to take that $1,000 as a tool to get something better. Listen to this. I wrote a book called Why Smart People Make Dumb Mistakes with Their Money. And we discovered that one of the biggest reasons why people don't have retirement plans that are sufficient for retirement is because they look at the money they make right now, and I need to save that and spend it instead of investing it for something that I can't touch until I'm maybe 65, 70 years old. So I'm going to keep it right now. Maybe I've got a savings account, but I'm not going to invest it in something else because of this scarcity mindset. It's the deferred gratification versus immediate gratification.
Can you please talk about the concept of confirmation bias, how that can negatively affect your decisions, and how to prevent a person from falling into that trap, which I think happens all the day, and one of the things that's been dividing the country?
Scarcity bias is really a good example of mindset, because scarcity bias basically by definition says, I'm going to listen to only the things I already believe. If I think that this happens a lot in a lot
you
of
mean
the
confirmation bias? You mean confirmation?
Sorry, not scarcity, confirmation bias, of course. So confirmation bias says I'm only going to listen to things I already believe. So this happens a lot in the investment business. The people who invest in real estate don't want to hear about stocks, bonds, et cetera. People in the stocks, bonds area don't want to really hear about real estate. So you have this confirmation that says I'm only going to pay attention. This is politics too. There was a really interesting thing when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008. And I think it was one of the late night talk show hosts that went into Harlem, and they talked to some of the Barack Obama voters. And they said, so what do you think about Barack Obama? Oh, he's a wonderful guy. He's just great. He's going to make a great president. What do you think about Sarah Palin as being his running mate? Do you like her? Oh, yeah, she's great. They have to have a woman on the ticket. What about him doing with welfare? Do you support that? Yeah, people got to work. How about his anti-abortion stance? I just don't believe in abortion. So all the things that Barack Obama was not for, they said he was. And because of the confirmation of Barack Obama, they were biased and they would listen to anything else except how great Barack Obama was. But it's just politics. If you look at people that have an opinion about anything, they won't listen to anything else except for what they believe, which makes everything so polarizing right now. I read The Economist. I read the Wall Street Journal, because The Economist is pretty liberal. The Wall Street Journal is pretty conservative, because I'm always trying to get an angle of something else. I listened to this one, speaking of prescient, I listened to this one interview from the University of Chicago professor. His name is Mearsheimer, political science. He was giving a reason why the Russian President Putin was invading Ukraine. In 2008, I don't believe this, by the way, but I want to get that viewpoint. In 2008, NATO was actually invited Ukraine and Georgia into be part of NATO. Putin felt like it was getting too close. He felt threatened, so he invaded Georgia right away. He invaded the eastern provinces of Ukraine, and of course, we know what happened now. I don't believe what he said, but at least a person with confirmation bias wouldn't even listen to it after maybe the first 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think that as well. And one of the things I liked in your book was, I like to quote, when people show you who they are, you should believe them. And I remember Donald Trump said that after being elected, he never hid who he was. Why do people not believe what they see in others, and often make bad hiring decisions?
The reason is because we rationalize what we want from people. One of the biggest the best piece of advice I gave her, give my three daughters. I've got three daughters. One is Stacy. She's 39. She's my favorite, by the way, because she gave me two grandkids. The middle one, come on, everybody's got a favorite kid. The middle one is pretty special. She's going to physician assistant school right now in Denver. She's wonderful. She's 30. My youngest one is 28 years old. This kid is fabulous. She volunteered with Youth with a Mission in Thailand, China, and also Indonesia, rescuing girls out of sex slavery. They're all very accomplished. She works for an orphanage right now. They're accomplished. They're wonderful kids. But I always said to them, when people show you who they are, you should believe them. Oh yeah, but this guy is so sweet. He's so nice. He's such a wonderful guy. You know, he always takes care of me. He always smiles. He always asks me how I'm doing. Okay, sweetie, what does he act like? Well, yeah, but that doesn't matter, because they wanted to believe in this fantasy about who someone was instead of look at the behavior they had. You know, I personally think I want to stay away from politics to the extent that I can. But I don't really believe much in what people say. I want to look at the policies that they've done. So when people show you who they are, when they show you what they've done, you should believe them. That's who that person is, not what they say. That's what every mom and dad has told every kid from the beginning of time.
Yeah, no question about it. You had a great example of someone leaving your employ for more money, and you wrote that when someone leaves for more money, it's a cover-up for another problem. Can you explain that, and how do leaders catch that before it happens?
Yeah, I actually wrote that out too, because I wanted to take some stuff from my book, How to Hire, Recruit, Retain Great People. So I had one marketing person named Andrea, and I came back from a trip, and Andrea met me at the airport, and I said, well, this is kind of strange. She's meeting at my gate. This is before 9/11. And she said, by the way, I just want to let you know I'm going to work for Peter. And Peter was not a good friend, but he was a colleague. And he's going to pay me 25% more money. And I thought, okay, well, you know, I was unhappy about it, but, you know, that's what I could do. Turns out that and here's a test for you. Turns out there are 5 reasons why people join and leave a company. And I'll let you pick the ones you think where people join and people leave. Number 1 is money. Number 2 is fun. Number 3 is recognition. Number 4 is support. And number 5 is recognition, support. Let's just take 4. I can't remember what the 5th one is.
I would think recognition would be the most important.
Support, recognition. Here it is. Money, fun, training, support, recognition. Okay, so I'll give you this one more time. Money, fun, training, support, recognition. What's the number of reasons why people leave a company?
I think lack of recognition.
What's number 2, you think?
Well, money is at the bottom, so I'm going to put money at the very bottom.
Let's cut to the chase.
Yeah.
When people leave a company, it's always because I didn't get enough recognition. Millennials or Gen Xers don't get enough training. The younger they are, the more they want training. I didn't enough support. My computers are slow. The chair squeaks. You know, the telephones are antiquated. And at the bottom is always money. So when she said, I'm leaving because I want 25% more money, it wasn't the money. It was something else that I found out was inability to cope with other people within my company. What do you think the number 1 reason is for people to join a company, Mark? This becomes pretty easy.
Is it always because of they start off with money?
They start with money. And the reason is because they don't know the kind of training they're going to get. They don't know about the recognition. They don't know about the support. They don't know everything else. So the only thing they can focus on, the only thing that's real for them is money. So what that really means is, and I write about this in my book, what it means is always start people out when you hire them with the amount of income they're getting right now. But I always tell people that work for me anyway, I'm going to start you with your income currently. I'm going to increase you after a period of time. But after 3 months, if the salary is competitive, it's almost never why people leave. It's one of the other reasons.
Yeah, I always think that too. And you're always checking their temperature about things and how they feel comfortable. I remember one time becoming CEO of a company that one of my board members invested in. And every day I was hoping the train would derail so I wouldn't have to go into that company. And even though they were paying me a lot more money, I really hated the culture and everything. It was a very hard culture to go and change. So it's never
You know,
about, I
the
learned
book
that
is
at
on
33.
new mindset and results. But since we're talking about this is an interesting stat I'm writing about currently. 83% of the people working right now do not like their jobs. They don't like what they're doing, which really equates to I don't like my boss. I don't like the environment. 69% are currently looking to change, looking for new opportunity. So you look at the Great Resignation, the 3.9 unemployment average. That doesn't reflect these people who are looking for an opportunity someplace else, but they're just not on the job boards. They're not on ZipRecruiter. They're not looking for any other place, right? Glassdoor, et cetera. But they're looking for an opportunity. They're just not available to those platforms.
I really love the story about this guy from CFS2 bill collection in terms of outward thinking and the differentiating and improving internal morale. Could you please talk about that and what we can take away from it, especially first explain what outward mindset is, but then talking about the outward thinking as well?
Yeah, the two kinds of mindsets that work within the genre of new mindset results is the outward mindset basically says, if I'm going to make a decision about something, I'm going to think about how it affects other people at the same time, whether or not it's efficacious to get what I want to do. The inward mindset says, I'm going to think about what I want, and the outward thinking, how it affects other people, is going to be tangential. So a good example of that would be one of my buddies. He said, listen, I can only play tennis until 5:30. I've got to go. And of course, we went up to get a beer, and it was 7 o'clock. And I said, by the way, weren't you supposed to be someplace at 5:30? Yeah, my wife wanted me to take her out. Well, you're late. You're an hour and a half late. Yeah, but she'll be upset. Maybe for a couple of days, but that'll be it. That's a good example of an inward mindset. The outward mindset basically says, I want to do this, but I want to make sure it's okay with these other people and it won't adversely affect them. So there's one bill collection company thought, how do people collect bills? We make a lot of money. We get 25% of the bill if we can collect it. Maybe we factor it. We buy the whole thing. We try to collect as much as we can. We get a discount on that. But we're calling these people and they don't have jobs. Maybe they're behind in other things. Maybe what we could do is help them increase their income. That would help them pay their bill more effectively. So they said, we're going to call these people and we're going to actually, for the people who are unemployed, they obviously can't pay a bill unemployed. We're going to try to find out what their skill set is, and we're going to try to set with job interviews. And to the extent that they were successful in that, they would actually call these applicants the morning of the interview and remind them of the interview, and they'd review resumes. So they were doing a little bit more than a bill collection. They were trying to make the person more successful in their life, which then would help them pay their bills. That's a really good example of an outward mindset.
Yeah,
and a growth mindset at the same time.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant way of differentiating himself and making people who work for him aren't crazy about being bill collectors. It's got to be like the worst job in the world. But he made it into a really fun job for them. And the people he dealt with were probably taking their calls because they developed a great reputation.
When's the last time any of us, all of us were probably called by a bill collector sometime in their life. But when's the last time someone called us and said, hey, listen, tell me about the bill. Are you having trouble paying it? Yeah, I am. Can I help you? Develop a system where you can pay it? Would that be beneficial for you? I've never heard that once in my whole life. Instead, what they say is, pay it right now. We're going to ding your credit. We're going to make your life miserable. Yeah, totally different mindset.
Yeah. You tell a great story about legendary basketball coach Bobby Knight and his growth mindset with the players, but a fixed mindset for himself. Please tell us about it. And could Knight have won more than 3 national championships if he would have fixed that?
Bobby Knight was really famous for caring amazingly about his kids that were playing basketball. Indiana, Bobby Knight would take care of the kids when they were in the hospital. They take care of the parents to the extent that he was allowed that by the NCAA. Bobby Knight would always do the extra step about guiding people through not only coaching, but psychological issues. Maybe they lost a parent, they had some problem with school, maybe they had some psychological issue. He'd always be there for the kids no matter what happened. He was always supportive for the kids. Be a growth mindset. You could think of that as an outward mindset. For himself, though, he was hot-headed. I mean, he threw a chair across the
I
floor.
watched that game.
Well, I didn't see it. I heard about it.
I watched it. It was unbelievable.
But he took a kid by the back of his jersey and put his hands around his neck, like almost like he was going to strangle him. I think he was fined, and also he was suspended for that one episode. But so that's a fixed mindset. When you can't tolerate certain things, you've got to protect what you have. Throw the chair across, grab the kid by the neck. That's a fixed mindset. So what he could have done to be able to become a better coach, speaking of winning more games, what he could have done is said, you know, what's happening right now, we're going to go back to the drawing board next week. We're going to coach these players through it. And I'm going to be able to think that way during the game instead of going so crazy by self-sabotaging myself. So he had a fixed mindset for himself and a growth mindset for the kids. It's too bad. He could have been, of course, he is one of the greatest college basketball coaches in history. He could have been the greatest.
Probably for sure. We only have a few minutes here, so let's talk about this. What's the best way of setting goals that you can reach but are attainable so it doesn't squash your ambition or your employees?
So a goal is only something that you can attain. If you can't attain it, it's called a dream. So great, I've got a house in Portugal. I'd love to have a house in Park City, which my kids are going. I'd love to have another house maybe in California so I could rent that thing out. Do I want to work for it? No, it's a dream. I don't want to work to get those things. So a goal is only something you could set your activity for, and we like to work things down on a weekly basis to be able to get the thing that you want. Let me give you an example. So we do in our coaching practices, we say, okay, maybe it's a salesperson, maybe it's a business owner. You want to work 45 weeks a year. You want to make $450,000 a year. And if you break that down 45 weeks, that's 450, that's $10,000 a week. See if I do my math effectively. The average sale for me, the average sale is going to be, let's say $2,000. So that means I have to make 5 sales a week. So there's 4 stages in a client relationship. Number 1 is called the sale. Number 2 is called, in fact, I'll give you these levels. Number 2 is called the closing presentation. We present something that we hope people are going to say yes to or no. Number 3 is the opening fact finder. We listen, we pay attention, we ask questions. And number 4 is sourcing the business, which is referrals. Could be some sort of social media. I love referrals, which is why I always talk about this the most. So we say that we need 5 sales. Our closing average is pretty close to 85%. So I have to do 6 closing presentations. My closing ratio is really high on the opening fact finder. So that means I need to do 7 opening fact finders. And a third of the people I talk to, I can interest them into listening effectively, ask questions to put in the pipeline. And I need to make 10 of those things. So my business plan is 10 contacts, 7 opening fact finders, 6 closing presentations, 5 sales. Now, to the extent that I can keep myself disciplined to do that every single week will mean that I'm going to make $450,000 a year. And that means I can buy a house over here. I could buy college for my kids over here. I could be able to buy a new Porsche over here, whatever the goal is. But if you just set a goal, I want to buy that house in Portugal. And if you didn't go through that process, it's a dream. It's not a goal.
I like that differentiator. Here's the last question for you. And you wrote a lot about this in the book. And I always thought this was interesting because I'm a former sports writer. Please talk about the concept of visualization and how successful is that? Because I've tried to visualize things and it hasn't quite turned out the way I would have liked.
Well, visualization I talk about in the book is not the visualization you think about. So the visualization that we think about is whatever you can believe, visualize, and conceive, you will achieve. I think I heard one of my mentors, Zig Ziglar, talk about that once. The visualization we want to do is more towards NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So NLP basically says that what I need to do is I need to diminish the picture of things I don't want or the things I want to avoid and increase the vividness of the things I do want. So for example, Bandler and Grinder talked about how to do what's called a phobia cure. So they would have somebody And this, by the way, this is one of the things that I did when I was at the VA administration without even knowing it. Back in UC San Diego days in the late 70s, we were able to get soldiers out of PTSD. We'd actually get them to relive the episode in a third person. So it's almost like they see themselves on a screen of a movie, reliving the episode of when they were in Vietnam, for example, that we had a lot of Vietnam vets. And they experienced the firefight, and they experience the situation of maybe one of their buddies dying. Kind of a horrible, morbid thing to think about, but they had to do this thing. And we'd have them go through this whole thing as a third person on a movie screen, maybe for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. At first, they'd have these horrible emotions. As they went farther through it, after a couple of weeks, they disassociate who they were to what happened. And they were able to decrease the symptoms because of that, decreasing that picture, that vividness. So let's take an example of something we do want. Maybe this is a moving toward kind of a thing. So if I want to buy a house in Portugal, I look at that picture of the house in Portugal. I look at this house on a cliff overlooking the ocean. I see the people. I can see this right now because I haven't been in my house in about 6 months. I see the people in the square, how wonderful the people are. During black and white night, which everybody dresses in black and white, they have bands on each street corner. They have photo music everywhere. They have these fishing boats are on the side. I could see that. It's just so vivid as I'm talking about this right now. The more I can do that, the more I can focus on that being the end result of the goal that I want, that I can do these things with. So 2 things. Number 1, the things I want to diminish, I can decrease the emotions. The things I want to increase the vividness, I can increase the emotions, which helps us achieve our goals more effectively.
Kerry, I always love speaking to you. I thank you for coming on for the second time with me. And this book is terrific, and I hope people are going to get it. And now I got to get some of these other books and have you on again in 2023 because we're booked for the rest of this year. So I'm going to have to take a look through your books, or you can suggest some books to me.
I will.
Everybody, have a great weekend. Again, Kerry, good speaking to you.
Thanks,
Take
Mark.
care.